how do I introduce you first? You tell me that. Gautam is an ace. Is one of the finest illustrators, a very very fine artist, of course. First and foremost, a brilliant author, a very very fine, sensitive author at that. He is a very incisive sort of a socio-political commentator, I would say. And he's a national award winner for animation films. Am I missing anything, Gautam? He's also a teacher. Now, Gautam, what else am I missing? Tell me, please.
Well, I'm a writer, columnist, right?
And a columnist. Oh, of course, a columnist. Yes.
That. I do that.
Yes. Okay. You don't have to be modest at all. I don't see you. I mean, here at least on this chat, throw away all the modesty out and all that. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So now you tell me, Gautam. First, I mean, before we begin anything else, you'll have to tell. You've had a rich influence of art on all sides and all kinds of art growing up. So you'll have to tell us a little about that.
Well, my father, my grandfather was an artist. My father was an artist. And I grew up with a lot of art happening around the house. And from childhood, I've been watching my father painting. And it was just natural that I would probably just get into it. And well, I used to do cartooning, I used to do drawing, a lot of all that when I was a kid. We had never any dearth of art materials because my grand uncle, he was also an artist and a photographer, and he had this studio in Dharamtala Street in Calcutta. And my father used to be working there, and this studio used to do all the film publicity work, the posters and other things for all the film, all the cinema halls in Calcutta, which used to show all the English films. In fact, he had quite a monopoly, my grandfather. It was B.V. Benegal Studios.
Wow.
And when I was a child, and my brother and I, we were children, and from childhood, we have been to that studio, and what we remember is this huge, big room, art room where this huge, big table is spread out with lots of pots of colors and paints and brushes and paper. And they were actually pots. They were not little small pots. They were actually big pots of poster color. And so it's not like those little circular little watercolor things you get, the children have with these little brushes. That's not what we had. We actually had what my father and granduncle would have. So you could really dip into it and make a big splash. And there was no dearth of paper. Wow. So you had, and paper wasn't A4 sized paper. It was not even A3 sized paper. There were huge chart paper and bigger sizes than that.
Wow.
And while they were working, the people who used to work there, it wasn't a very big studio. It was small in the sense that there were not too many employees. My brother and I used to spread out the paper on the ground or on that work table, and we used to just splash to our heart's content. So there was a lot of freedom in that sense, because when a child draws, the child is always told two things. One thing is that the paper size is limited,
right,
which kind of hampers creativity, and the other thing that limits a child is when you tell a child to draw inside the lines.
Lines, yes.
Yeah, be neat, do all this and everything, but that is the opposite of what one should be telling a child. You do not draw inside the lines. In fact, there are no lines. So one has to be absolutely spontaneous and very free. It's like running in an open field.
Wow.
And you can't spread your wings inside a small room, a little cell, So that is the analogy that I'm giving here when it comes to painting and drawing. So that kind of releases a certain spontaneity in you, a certain sense of freedom and creativity, which doesn't otherwise get released.
Yeah.
So when I was around 14 years old, by that time, and there was this, my father used to pick up a lot of people, and he was a friendly guy. My father was quite an extrovert. and he would pick up people on the trains, he'd pick up people in buses and make friends with them and bring them home, you know. And my mother would be absolutely very harassed lady. I mean, she didn't know who would turn up for dinner, who would turn up for lunch or in the evening. And her go-to was, okay, fine, I'll make masala dosa. And she would go and she'd make masala dosa and everything would be fine. And my father picked up a lot of friends that way.
Okay.
He would pick up absolute strangers and bring them home. I remember a French puppeteer. I remember two German chimney sweeps, both girls. I
Wow.
remember a man who used to collect cockle shells.
Wow.
And the last person, and the last guy he picked up, not last, I mean, one of the people he picked up was a guy who worked in a bank in Park Street. Now, he simply worked in a bank, but he had ambitions of being a publisher. And so
Okay.
he wanted to, and he brought along this young man who, by the way, also happened to be known to one of my uncles,
Okay.
and who was a up and coming poet.
Okay.
And he wanted to write Bengali nonsense rhymes. And
Mm-hmm.
Bengali nonsense rhymes are a big thing in Calcutta because
Right.
of Shukumar and all that.
Right.
So these he took a liking to this young man's nonsense rhymes and said, I'm going to bring out a book. I said the thing about Calcutta people is whether they're bankers, whether they're doctors or lawyers or whatever, there is creative
There's that
itch
creative
with them.
madness in each of them.
Yeah,
Lying someone.
and
Yeah.
this guy had made a lot of some money or whatever, I guess. So he said, okay, I want to be a publisher. Little did he know what happens to publishers when they get that kind of.
So nice. Now, all that you make as a banker, you'll just drain them
Yeah.
out as a publisher.
So he stuck his neck out, and there was this book he published, and he came to my father and said, "Your son does a lot of drawing and cartoons and stuff, and will he do the illustrations for this?" And I was about 14 years old at that time. So my father brings me in, and I talk to Mr. Ranjan Bhaduri. That was his name.
Okay.
And I say, yeah, I do it. Obviously, which kid is going to say no to something like that? So then I get all these poems and I do lots of illustrations and everything. I do the cover. My father helps in doing the, the lettering,
Hmm.
and the book comes out. It's called Gabbu's Gabba. All right, quite a good production. I mean, see, considering it was his first venture into publishing and his last one, may I add, because that book didn't sell much at all. Even though it went to the book fair and we did
Yeah.
a lot of stuff and
Yeah.
everything. So, but it's a fun time.
Yeah.
And that book got done. It was a pretty good production in that sense.
Hmm.
Good paper, good design, everything. And I remember I was very happy after doing that book. And after I did that, I started illustrating for Ananda Bazar Patrika at the age
Yeah.
of 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because of that book.
No,
Now,
so
how
how
did
old
I
were you
get
when you no,
paid?
so when you started for ABP? How old were
It
you?
was 14. It was 14.
Oh,
I
still.
had to wait for 2 more years before I
Hmm.
did for Ananda Bazar. But in
Okay.
between, I did something very interesting. But first, let me tell you how I got paid.
Yes.
So this
Okay.
guy says, you're not going to get paid in the usual way, but I'm going to give you a gift. So I
Okay.
waited for the gift. The next day, he brought 7, 8 cassettes. You know, in those days, we had cassettes.
Yes, of course.
He had sat up nights. He had sat up nights
You
and he had
record them.
worked hard. He had made compilations of Western classical music, jazz,
Wow.
rock, Drupadi, the Indian
Yes,
classical
classical.
music, Rabindra Sangeet, folk.
Wow.
He had created an entire mini music library for me.
Wow.
That was my first introduction to a world of music.
Wow. Wow.
I don't think I've had any greater gift or
Yeah.
payment
Yeah.
than what I got at that age for that thing I did. It was beautiful. It
Wow.
was beautiful. And because of that, I started getting interested in music. I started getting interested in a lot of things. This is the butterfly effect that
Right.
happens.
Right.
A
Right.
young child is not given money. He's not given some coupon to put Pizza Hut or something like that. We did not have all that at that
Hmm.
time. Any case, but you are given seeds. You're given seeds to plant in your mind, and they just simply flow. I'm getting very emotional now as I'm talking about it right now, and I remember what a great gift I had at that
Yeah.
time. And those cassettes lasted a long time with me, and I got interested in music, this, that, and the other. But that book did another thing for me.
Hmm.
I was enterprising enough at that age to say that I want to show this book to Mr. Satyajit Ray.
To Mr. Ray, so Satyajit Ray.
Satyajit
Okay.
Ray.
Yeah. Okay.
So I went to this uncle of mine who happened to be Ray's friend. I mean, many years ago when they used to listen to classical music together and all that. I mean, that was before the days of Potter Panchali and all that. So I said, I want to meet him. He said, okay, I'll give you Manik's phone number. You call him, you go, whatever. So I called up Satyajit Ray from his house. And on the other side of the phone, who is this and everything happening is that, sir, this is so and so. Can I meet you? He says, all right, come over tomorrow at this time. And he talks in that
Yeah. Yeah.
gravely way.
Yeah.
So the next day, I'm clutching that. I think I ruined. I got 10 or 11 of those complimentary books. I must have ruined three by trying to write Satyajit Ray's name in a hurry in the flyleaf. By getting the spelling wrong and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
finally, I got the third book. I ruined the fourth book. I managed. And then I went to Satyajit Ray's house in one by one Bishop Lefroy Road, 14-year-old kid, climbing up the wooden stairs. My heart is hammering,
Yeah.
and he opens the door himself.
Wow.
He opens the door himself. He's towering over me, looking over me. I'm 6'2" now. I must have been around 5'11" or something, 5'10". I was pretty tall as a kid, towering over me. And then he looks at the book in the doorway itself. He says, "Yeah, come in, come in." So he's looking, and then he says, "These are very good. Why don't you illustrate for us? Why don't you illustrate for Shandesh?" Shandesh is a magazine that he and Leela Majumdar and Nalini Das used to run. So I'm like, "Yes, sir, I'll do it." So he gives me the address, and the next day I'm off there. I mean, I'm like zooming here, doing stuff.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of things happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I go to that place and they give me some assignments and all that. Okay, we don't pay any money. They're saying. I said, all right, I don't want any money or anything. I just want to start illustrating and all that. And again, what I didn't get for money, in terms of real terms, I got a lot more.
Yeah.
Because I started writing for Sandesh, and Satyajit Ray would correct what I wrote with a green pen in his
Wow.
handwriting. He wrote me a letter also. God knows where that letter is now. Nowadays, people take selfies and they keep letters carefully. In those days in Calcutta, we didn't think twice about these things because they're surrounded by people like that. So one didn't really value what which I should have valued, I guess.
Mm.
But that gave me entrance into Anandabazar Patrika.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I started working for Anandabazar Patrika at the age of 15 or 16, sometime like that. No, earlier, yeah. And they started paying. But they were paid very little. I used to
Yes.
get paid 20 rupees
Then
for
it is.
drawing or something like that or whatever. But it was payment.
Mm.
Now, the point that I'm trying to make is if I didn't have that history behind me, who's going to take a 15-year-old kid to illustrate for Anandabazar Patrika?
Right.
Money, the way kids see it nowadays, or even my students, and I talk to them and say, well, how much are we going to get paid for this? I said, this is not the way to think.
Yes.
You build a reputation, you build a practice, you build a certain trust.
Yes.
To do all that, money and all that will come later. It
Mm.
will happen. But first, you build a certain foundation.
Yeah.
Anyway, all that wasn't in my head. That time I was just so happy. I'm just a 15, 16-year-old guy. I'm going to Anandabazar Patrika on the fourth floor. And all the major writers, they used to call them the Navaratna of Anandabazar Patrika, Shunil Gangopadhyay and Shakti Chattopadhyay, the poets and the writers, all the great cartoonists like Chandi Lahiri, Ayubhushan Malik, all those people, over there, like, and I am a brat. I'm moving around there, chatting with them, having tea, sipping, everything. And they are like treating me like one of their own people. I mean, it was like that,
Wow.
yeah. And I'm illustrating also. And I started writing
Mm.
for that page, that Monday page, Anandamala that used to come out. Then I started writing for Anandamala, that magazine. And so I got into the magazine thing like this.
Yeah.
I will always remember Ranjan Bhaduri and this, and then these little stepping stones and
Yeah.
things like that, and how these things happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, so after that, I started illustrating for a Bombay magazine, called Sci-Fun,
Hmm.
for a group called Veva, you know, writers, editors, visualizers, and artists.
Okay.
So they were a breakaway group from the IBH, India Book House,
Okay.
and they had started. They are the ones who had started Amar Chitrakatha and Pickle and all.
Ah, okay.
So they were Anant Pai's colleagues. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So one of them was my aunt, Sham Benegal's wife, Neera.
Okay.
Yeah, she used to be working for them also. Another one, Subba Rao, and there were many other people.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started doing my own individual comic strip series for them, and
Okay.
they paid well. They paid well. So when while I was in college, I was pretty much getting my money from Bombay,
Wow.
and I think I was the richest guy in my class in college. I used to roll up in a taxi. I used to throw parties at home and stuff like that, my friends and everything. So my father said, I think your friends are sponging on you. Let them sponge. It's okay.
Even in
Whatever.
your pada, you must have been one cat, moving around.
Yeah, the thing is in college, that is one thing, but strange thing in college, all my friends were into stuff. I mean, they were having these romances and stuff like that. Not me. I'm going to Anandabazar Patrika. I'm going to Sandesh. I'm doing all this. Nothing, no girlfriend, no romance, nothing. I mean, like I was so totally into all this
Yeah.
that I had no time.
Yeah, you
I
had
mean,
no
like
time.
I'm wondering, did I do something wrong? Because I don't have those memories. So I
Okay.
was so totally professionally, I mean, just focused.
Yeah.
And then I asked my father one day, I want to do animation. So he said, yeah, then you should go to Bombay. And the best person to learn animation from is Mr. Ramon. So I went to Bombay. I did my BA. I didn't bother doing my MA. My professors were very disappointed, comparative literature. And so I just took a train and went off to Bombay. I landed up at my uncle's office and I say, I want to meet Mr. Ramon. He just calls up Mr. Ramon. Ramon comes with my, let's start. Okay, I said, I would like to join. He said, oh, fine, join from tomorrow and all that. When I joined Ramohan, the first thing he does is give me a storyboard to do. And at that time, I'm thinking I'm gone big cat, right?
Ah,
So,
yeah.
so he gives me the storyboard and I do the thing. He looks at it and he said, this is what kind of drawing? What are you doing here? You need to unlearn a lot, you need to learn a lot more and all that. And then I know I'm in the big sea, I'm the big sea.
Yeah.
So then I used to work for him. I learned animation. I worked for him for 2, 3 years. And then suddenly I had given in a project. I was pretty ambitious that way. I given a project to CFSI, Children's Society of India. And that letter came while I was working for him. They accepted a film of mine. And I'm still raw. I haven't learned animation completely. And I get this film.
But
So overnight, overnight at the age of 23 or 24, I become a director.
wow.
and,
Yeah.
and I said, go to Mr. Ramo and say, sir, how do I do this? I don't know. He said, भाव खा के आगे बढ़ो. भाव खा के आगे बढ़ो. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So what I did was I actually then I thought that okay, I've got a lot of animators here, and I don't think Mr. Ramon will mind if I employ his people after hours, my colleagues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here I had a bunch of animators, me and everything, and I finally made the film. It went to Trivandrum Film Festival. Jaya Bachchan was the chairperson at that time. It went
Yeah.
abroad to a lot of places and everything. And then after that, quickly I got my second film the very next year when Shabana Azmi was the chairperson. And then I got my university grants commission projects and then a few more films and all that. And then, well, that's how. In Bombay, by that time, I was pretty well staying in Bombay. I
Yeah.
started working for DNA, Times of India, West Side Plus, cartoons. And in Bombay, the thing is, people ask me, how do you do so many things? It's papi pet ka sawal hai. If you're staying in Bombay, you have to do a lot of
You
things to
have to do it.
supplement your income.
Yeah.
And actually, my painting and all that started very recently, around 2007. I mean, in that
2007.
sense. Yeah, pretty recent in that sense.
Ah,
Because I used to
okay.
paint before, but I only started doing exhibitions and selling and all that pretty late in life in that
Mm-hmm.
sense. And well, the rest of the story is just how I just kept on doing stuff. And even today, I mean, even what I'm doing right now, I'm teaching at Srishti, School of Srishti Institute, Art and Design. So this is before that I've taught at Whistling Woods, animation, scripting, and all that. I've done some at this IDAS and all that. But this is kind of great fun. I've got a lot of students around me, and
Yeah.
I still continue to do my illustration books. I'm going to do two for you right now, and I continue to paint and do my cartoons. My cartoons are a really hot case, so they're mostly on Facebook right now.
Oh yes,
And
your chicken soap.
yeah,
And the book is also coming out, right? The chicken soap book.
yeah, the book is supposed to come out. Yeah, the book is supposed to come out soon. But I didn't want a online kind of we're all just talking heads here. Like, so I wanted a real release, maybe at the Delhi Press Club or something like that.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah. So that, and I'm working on a number of things now apart from my teaching.
Okay. But even
So
then, I'm
it's
just
quite hectic.
thinking. I mean, to have thought of something like animation would have been very unusual. Not many people would have been doing animation at that time when you decided to get into it.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I saw Disney Jungle Book, you know,
Okay.
that time, and that was a big deal for me. My father and took me out and he showed me Jungle Book. And so I remember we were crossing the road from Lighthouse to Newmarket, and in the middle of the road, I told my father I want to make animation.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
So Disney's Jungle Book was a big turning point in my life.
So, and at no point was because your uncle is into films. So, was at no point getting into films an option for you? I mean, in your
No,
mind,
I
you
at
never
no
thought.
point at no point did I want to do live action. Although I've made two documentaries, medical documentaries, one on noise pollution and one on thalassemia. I've assisted my uncle in his documentaries where I have done animation for him, 2D.
Okay.
Ramon did the 3D, I did the 2D on my own. But like any other vendor, I mean, he paid me and all that. So I never assisted him in any live action film. And I never wanted to join him in any live action film or
Hmm.
anything like that. I just wanted to do my own thing. So, but yeah, I assisted him in documentaries, and I made two
Okay.
documentaries. I've made a live action film, by the way. I made a children's film, live action film. I did that with my wife. She directed, and we made it for CFSI. It was called Mitti or Chan. We
Okay.
did Rajit Kapoor in it and Rajeshwari Sachdev. So
Mm-hmm.
we made that film sometime in 2005.
Okay.
So the short film to CFSI, live action, but that was the only live action thing I did actually. Yeah. So I'm basically an animator in that,
Okay.
but a 2D animator.
2D animation. Okay. See, I first came in touch with you when you were doing this book with Wisdom Tree. Bondale
Yeah.
Road,
Right.
yeah. So and I was
Yeah.
editing that. So which is
Yeah.
when
Yeah. Right.
I came across your fabulous writing and so very. I mean, every single word sort of just speaks to the reader. There's something in that so gentle and so evocative that you that instant connect is there. So. But at that time, I didn't know you could also that you were largely an artist so that came much. I mean, I got to know of it later. which
You
is,
know that best friends are forever book that you did.
yes,
It'll always stay in my memory
okay,
because it. I created a new style for myself,
right.
and that style is something that has stayed with me. I mean, it's new, and I try to do a new style every time with a different book of yours. And but that has a lot of pleasant memories for me.
Yes.
That best friends are forever.
Yeah, it was great fun working on that book.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
yes,
yeah. And it's great fun working with you because I can, as a writer also, I see your perspective and with the way we discuss it and the way we sort of plan the layout together and the whole thing. That's a very good way to work. I mean, it's not just you give it to me and I do something and I come back with it. Oh, it's okay. Oh no, it's okay. Okay, let's do it again. It's not like that. It's working on it together. So
yeah.
that's really a synergy there.
Yeah. No, for me, Gautam, I think
That's what it is.
what's been most important in that sense has been that
Richa, you're stuck, I think.
uh, I think the signal is. Am I audible?
You're audible, but
I
your picture was
I
stuck
think the
for
picture
some.
maybe okay maybe. No, I was
Okay,
trying to
okay.
say, is it okay? Am I back in the frame now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's saying my internet connection is unstable, but I think that's all right.
It's
It's
okay. It's
stable
okay.
now.
Because I
Yeah,
can hear you, so it's not a problem.
yeah,
No,
that's
what I
good.
was saying was that at many points in our journey together of creating these books, I've always felt that you're more like that creative anchor for me because I get into these huge self doubt moments where remember so many times I tell you I can't go on. I mean, I think this is it. This is this.
In
I
the
don't know
very
which way to
beginning,
move.
in the very beginning, when you were doing Unboy Boy,
Yes.
I had told you, Richa, that you're going to do a lot. There's lots going to happen, and it did. It was a prediction that I made that has come true. Yeah.
No, because see, in that sense, Unboy Boy was such a special book for me because you see, it was a huge leap of faith that you took with me, and of course, Alicia also with Susu Pals, because both the books were happening in parallel at that time. I was pretty much getting them done as self-published books. I mean, there was no backing as of any sort for me in that sense. And I remember, I mean, I just connected with you for Unboy Boy, and you said yes, you will do it. So that itself was such a buoying sort of
And you
a.
know that the script for that got passed by CFSI. It's still lying there with them. It's passed, but after that, it was meant to be signed.
Yeah.
The signature needs to be put, and they've dissolved the committee or something. There's no chairperson, no nothing, and everything. The last, I don't know what's happened.
It's
So now
okay.
I've
Come back.
decided.
Uh,
No, I've decided now I'm going to do it myself on my own. I've got the software, I've got my students, I've got interns, I've got everything. I have as many animators as I want because I'm creating them myself.
yes.
I create animators every day. And I'm going to do the Unboy Boy. I'm going to do it myself.
Okay, fine. All right. Okay.